We appreciate you joining us for this kind of an informal conversation between Nick and I. We wanted to just share some of the stuff that we've been going through with. I'm sure that a lot of you have been going through the same, and our experiences and what we're going to be doing moving forward. And just some housekeeping. If you want any questions answered, please use the Q&A. We're going to try to get to things in the Q&A at the end, or maybe during if it's has to do with what we're talking about. So with that, I want to well, first of all, I'm Rich Curran from Expo Convention Contractors out of Miami, and I want to turn it over to Nick out of Las Vegas.
Guys, I'm Nick Cordaro. I'm president, Las Vegas Expo Complete Show Services. We're base operation, if you don't know us, out of Las Vegas. Rich, obviously Miami, and we actually have an office that we opened recently in Nashville. So we're out here just trying to push forward like everybody else. I mean, the biggest thing I think me and Rich wanted to do was just talk about challenges we've seen in our size businesses. I mean, we consider our operations pretty similar in that aspect of it, and just overall changes to the business and how our business actually operated and how we got to the point where we are right now to get through the rest of this fun year and a half that we've had so far.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so Nick and I, we've shared a lot of work over the years. We've supported each other and on each other's side of the country. So that's why we talk about being similar in business, because that's the way that we see our similarities when we help each other out. So definitely a good chance to get perspective on the way that we see this. We see us coming out of this. So one of the things that we talked about prior to this, we said what is our business model looking like coming out of this, and are there changes and things like that. So Nick, what do you think that is there anything that kind of slap you in the face with changing your business model right now and moving forward?
As everybody I'm sure listening knows, I mean, and it definitely changed our business model whether we wanted it to or not. I mean, the overall business model, obviously, in the sense of what we're doing as a business stays intact, but how we approach those jobs and those customers and what we did to continue operations during this time is what is really the change in the business model. We've expanded some of our operational reach as part of our business model coming out of this, when before we said, hey, we're just going to stay over here in Las Vegas. Well, now, hey, let's put an office in Nashville and try to kind of service some customers in that way and keep some of the the cost down of what we're doing when we're operating. I mean, outside of that is other business that we've brought in the door, like I was telling you earlier about a high rise that we're going to wrap the outside of the building. It's not something we've done before, but how do we take these jobs and incorporate them into our business so it's something that we have another line of revenue coming in the door, because we don't know when the end of this is going to really be. I mean, we hear it,
right? Actually, speaking of that project, I find that like it's one of those things where that's just kind of what we do when we're doing trade show building and we have a customer say, can you do this? The answer is yes, and then we figure out how. Now we look at that in every opportunity. Now it's like you have a customer of any type, and with us, even it being outside of our industry, somebody says, hey, do you do this? The answer is yes, and then we figure out what we're going to do. So actually on that note, that's kind of what we've been doing is we it took a hard look, like right out of the gate, we said, okay, what opportunities are there for COVID related to things that we can do? We built the Miami Beach Hospital. We built some of the hospitals in Fort Lauderdale area. So we're working with some doing the room build outs for, and as it turns out, the 450 room hospital that we built at Miami Beach Convention Center didn't have one single patient. So good and bad, obviously, but they felt like it was a waste, but at the same time, hey, it was needed because nobody really knew at that time. So from that time, that was March, April, then we get it, the rest of the year was kind of like, okay, as we're trying to pursue other opportunities like that, we realized they all kind of ran out because everybody was doing that. So we looked at it, and I looked internally and I said, what are our skills and assets and abilities? And, we do some amazing exhibit building, but usually we just do a concentration on what we do for under our own shows. And, sometimes here and there we work with other customers, but then, we said, well, let's see what commercial businesses need. So we started working with restaurants. So we started working with, office buildings and building out custom barriers everywhere. Everybody wanted plexi. So then we kind of found ourselves in a niche where people wanted, an upgrade from something just plexi sitting on a desk, where they wanted it to really look like it fits the design. And then we ended up working with the Miami Dolphins, doing all of their locker rooms and doing all of their press boxes. So that was kind of a shift for us. But that's I see something that was like, okay, intermediary.
Right.
And obviously, and obviously as we go back to trade show, that stuff is going to go away, because, one offsets the other. I don't foresee continued businesses, like as we open back up, as we achieve herd immunity, we're not going to see people requesting, hey, I want you to come put plexi barriers all throughout my place. So definitely one offsets the other.
Yeah, luckily, I think we found a couple of pieces of business that are things that we'd like to continue to keep doing. We got a chance, and, a lot of it's reaching out to our own customers and having, transparent conversations with them, and they know kind of the spot we're in. And a lot of these customers have other jobs coming up. We had a customer that needed to do a remodel in their offices. So we took a bunch of our matrix systems and we did a full build out in their office for them, and all of a sudden it's a new revenue stream. And it's like, well, we can offer this for other customers. How do we manage that and still kind of leave that viable, but still get back into what, we all love to do, which is our industry.
That's absolutely a discussion we've had in house, because, that's one thing I've said internally. I said, all these things, this headway that we've been making with marketing our services, I don't want to walk away from that, because, we never know what the next pandemic's going to be, whatever, so we have to be diversified now. Being so dependent upon this has really been an eye opener in what, our sustainability, as a company. So it's, having to do all these extra things, has really been eye opening, as far as, like, for one, capabilities. It's like, oh yeah, we really can do all these extra things that are services. But the hardest thing, what I think, is trying to talk to a customer and say, when they say, what do you do? And you say everything.
Right.
It's like, how do you define what you can do for them when you literally, because that's what we do. We source, that's, if we're not building it under our roof, we're sourcing it from somewhere and we're getting it done. And it's interesting working in the commercial and even residential sector, because people really blown away by when you say that you're going to do something by a certain time and you actually do it. Apparently that's very rare in building and construction.
And it's so true. And I say it all the time, and it's the easiest way to explain it to vendors, but our product that we're offering only has value in a finite time. And a lot of people outside our industry don't understand that. We're not building houses where the house is still there and of value. You miss your timelines, you're done. It's right. It's, so we're used to delivering on what we tell people we're going to do. And that's what, we've kind of built our companies on. So, and it's neat to see when we're able to do stuff like that for customers, and still, they take that loyalty to us and say, hey, we got these other projects, other things that you can do. And it's like anything to kind of make it through, right? And restructure and look back.
Actually, I had a question. You mentioned Nashville. Did you kind of see that as an opportunity because that was going to be an early adopter, early opening region, or was that kind of on your radar prior to this anyway?
It was on our radar prior to this. So we slowly started a small operation out there right before the pandemic hit. I mean, we're talking like January, but, other opportunities in the industry kind of, with COVID, there was some opportunities to buy additional equipment to really kind of staff up facilities there. There was other companies out there that are partners that we were able to partner with and share building space. And, there were some that, had bigger spaces, but are looking to sublease certain sections so you can get a good deal on the lease and the rental. So COVID allowed the timing to happen. I mean, that's the big thing.
Kind of fast forwarded your vision anyway.
Right. It fast forwarded because COVID made that opportunity there. You're able to accomplish the same thing before. You're able to accomplish the same thing just at a lot cheaper of a rate, right? I mean, it costs a lot less. But the problem is really, mindset, is it really cheaper? Yes, it's less money, but money is a lot more valuable, I think, right now to all of our companies. So spending it is definitely, it's worth some sleepless nights when you're making decisions to spend money. But I want to bank on, I know that how great our industry is. So, I mean, I would rather
Yeah,
put my money back behind this industry and in this industry to keep pushing forward, because I know there's something at the end for us again to get back to where we
absolutely.
were.
Yeah,
It won't
definitely.
be exactly the same. And I think we kind of all realize that, but I think at some point, these online meetings and
Virtual events and yeah,
virtual events are just not at the same success level as these in-person events, and people are striving to have them happen.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, next I want to get into the lessons in spending and saving and kind of what we've experienced and the lesson that we learned in spending. I would say the biggest slap in the face was not saving. Being I guess a little loose with the money, because I think that we've been blessed to be busy 365 days a year, and you always know that you have cash flow because the next ones are coming, next ones are coming, next ones are coming.
Right.
And I think that that's been a huge lesson, because it's you or I would say we, as we're going and things are moving, you kind of throw money at things to solve the problem, and it's easier to buy more stuff or add more people to solve a problem versus really digging in and doing it the most efficient and cost saving way. So yeah, I think one of the lessons going forward is just taking a look at everything, as we go, and really utilizing what you have versus yeah, it might be easier to buy brand new carpet for this event versus cleaning and sizing and fitting. It's always easier to lay out new carpet, but we really got to take a hard look at that. So
Yeah, I mean,
I've done.
it's honoring that revenue stream and that money coming in the door. It's that we're that it's the fuel in the tank, right? In our industry, with being busy and constantly going, there's always cash flow coming in the door, right? So you're able to put more money towards issues or problems or buying more carpet. You're right, out of efficiency, I don't want to say efficiency, but out of not necessarily ease. Out of ease, it's easy to go buy that roll of carpet, or it's easy to go buy those extra pieces of agam instead of stripping those locks or octanorm. And
Yes.
you're right, and that we're kind of spoiled in that aspect of it, because you can just turn around and say, yep, we got to buy this, got to buy that, got to do this.
Yeah.
But you're right, now we got to get to a point where we need to really look at what we have and how do we most efficiently use the products that we own or hold on to make
Yeah.
them most effective and keep our revenue. Because right now we've all felt a serious revenue drop. Now this revenue is coming back, but we don't know what those numbers are going to look like. So
Right.
how do you
Yeah.
how do you build your business back, hire back employees? I mean, it's a transition to other topics. Hire back employees, do things when, yeah, you see business coming down the road, but how does that timing relate?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too, and actually we can get into that now, because that's been something where we have one of our bigger shows actually next month coming back, a project with Reed Jewelers International Showcase, and it usually we would do a January edition, a spring edition, and then a fall edition, and on that we would the January would be the mid-size, the fall would be the spring would be the smaller one, the fall is the largest. And because the January winter one didn't happen, now it's kind of like a hybrid. It's a little bigger than expected for the spring. So we're looking at, okay, how, when do we bring people back, at what level, in preparation, because typically, we would have a team of people just working on prep of this, a team of people just working on admin prep. We have, graphics, all these things. But now it's like, okay, we have a smaller team that's already working. We have higher expectations of the people we have, and then we need to just bring back people as needed, and where we, and what does that look like, and also are the people going to be there, and that's so we are looking at that, calling back our exhibitor service reps as we ramp up our customer service exhibitor services, and then we see that some people have taken other jobs. They have to. So
where everybody's got to survive, and that's you're
yeah.
right, and knowing if those people are available and willing to come back to work, but also as the business owner aspect of it, you bring people back for how long, right?
Yeah.
Right now, we know there's vaccines out there. We know there's there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It kept getting moved further and further away, but now it feels like it's getting closer,
Yes.
but we still don't know if that's really going to be the end. So, the other thing is responsibly bringing our employees back, but where we don't have to turn around a month later or 2 months later and lay off 25 more people again, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
trying
The
to find out
balance.
the
Yeah.
balance. And I think that really relates to what you were saying about diversity of your employees. And we found, we've whittled down to a core, executive team for, that was basically left that, we're able to cover every department, every division. And I've carried this group through. And luckily it's been nice because we've had other clients that have actually produced events. And, we were able to do an event in Vegas in September. And then we did an event in Dallas in December. And we've done a couple in Florida recently. So we've had these guys, but I'm asking all my staff that's here to do as much as they physically can. Whatever we have the capabilities of doing in-house, we need to do with the small staff that's here to maximize revenue. But now when that next job comes, do you, what percentage or how fast do you add back? It's a big challenge. It's
because committing to a spike in overhead and then not having that continuous revenue is not something that anyone can really do. It's like, hey, yeah, everybody come on back. But then next month don't have that cash flow coming into.
We had talked about it on the last call, but it was funny is it's like, if we saw a department running behind or a place was short or something was going on, we just add another staff member. And then you look back and you're like, oh my God, I got, 70 people here or 100 people here.
Yeah.
And it's almost, now you're just going back down. You're going, okay, how do I be more diligent with what I bring back? Be more diversified in those departments to try to keep it right. So we can keep afloat and keep, kind of moving along.
And you basically take the people that can do the most, cross training, cross jobs, the people that can fulfill multiple seats. And it's, we have someone that might be a CAD designer that also does 3D rendering, that also can lay out graphics. And then you have our graphics printers that also do the layout and the application thing. So we're wearing a lot of hats these days with the minimized team. And as even coming out of it though, I think like we said, money is not going to be something that, we're not going to get back to just throwing people at the problem. We're definitely going to be, growing strategically. And and I think that, we're going to be getting into that same MO of everybody wearing a lot of hats, even as you grow, because, you never know where something else is going to fall off, even internally. If someone leaves, someone's got to cover it. So I think that even is going to prepare us better for, efficiencies later.
Yeah, it'll make the companies way more efficient. I mean, and it seems to make sense. It's easier now with, coronavirus being as negative as it was with everything that happened. We don't necessarily in our industry. I mean, I don't know if everybody realizes this, but we're a very busy nonstop industry. So we never really have time to look back and fix issues as we're going along. Sometimes it's so fast paced that you see something that, you want to address and you have the money to do it, but you just don't have the time. Yeah. Right. Unless you want to do it during Christmas week or over the Thanksgiving weekend or,
exactly.
Now we have all the time in the world to look at these deficiencies, but not necessarily all the revenue in the world to fix them. So it's trying to find a balance between the two.
Yeah. It's like, all right, get the chalkboard out. Let's make a list of all the problems we see. So at some point we can fix them later.
Right. And that's kind of the idea. So now that's what we've done here is really come up with solutions and ways to fix things. And now it's okay, as we slowly start doing shows, how do we implement them most cost effectively?
Yeah, for sure. All right. And has there been any revenue streams that you guys have developed that, new business opportunities that you think that you're going to stick with, or has everything been just kind of passing time?
Most of it's been passing time, but we have had some build outs that I think we're going to stick with, trying to do more of that for customers. We've done it. We had an opportunity to do a museum build out. So there's a few things that we've had the opportunity to do that I would like to continue to keep our fingers on that pulse. A lot of it came from local, friends in the industry and customers. So just, keep pushing on, not pushing on the customers, but being transparent with the customers and making sure they know, hey, when something comes up, these guys can handle it. One of our big clients the other day was put in a studio on a second floor and they move these giant toolboxes and they're like, we need to come up with a concept to be able to lift these boxes, but we want to do this, this, and this. And it's like, no problem. Bring in our fabricator in the shop and we sit there and fabricate for, days and come up with a plan for them. But this is a revenue stream we never would have done before, i.e. time or, not asking for that type of
specifically that. I remember looking back and it's like, I kind of kicked myself because the opportunities that we're out there marketing right now is the stuff that I used to turn away,
Right.
2 years ago, where it was, 2, 3 years ago, where you have people come up like, oh, can you do this? I'm like, well, yeah, but right now we're prepping for this show and we have this and our fabrication team is doing this. And, it was like, well, maybe it's not a good time. And now it's one of those things, well, we get busy again. We got to figure out a way to fit that in and really, still be able to produce that, because, like I said, I don't see us walking away from everything that we've already been doing the last year and say, okay, we're done with that again. We're going to go back to the old ways. Yeah, the old ways definitely caught us with our pants down. So
what do you see looking into the next year? We're returning to work with your clients that are in place. So you got clients, you're going back to work with them again, but not necessarily do the terms have to stay the same anymore. Meaning, I know a lot of people have been talking to me about deposits and requirements. I mean, we're kind of in that unique industry of one of the few that has been completely decimated ourselves. There's other industries out there like restaurants that got attention, but they still had an opportunity to sell something and do something. A lot of us didn't, or a lot of the companies are completely shuttered, where they might have one guy going in once a week to make sure nothing got broken into, but they're not operating.
Yeah.
So, what do you see? Because, obviously we got to get money in the door to operate.
Yeah,
So
no, that's a good point. And yeah, obviously that's something that I'm sure everybody's thinking about, because, pretty much everybody spent all their money. And when like I said, going back to like the old ways where you constantly had cash flow, the next thing. So when someone would ask you to do something, you knew you had an entire staff, you knew you had cash flow, you knew you had all your overhead being paid. Now it's intentional. It's especially starting out again, it's very intentional on what you have people doing. Every minute, hour, and day is clocked to something now, where we used to just have drafting team there and you throw something at it and they would do it and come back. And no, it's not like that, so yeah, everything being so intentional now, I'm pretty sure everybody, we're not unique to that, people wanting deposits to do work. And yeah, we had somebody just the other day, very last minute, say, hey, we want to do a show in April. And I said, okay, I need an $8,000 deposit before I even start doing renderings and exhibitor kits and all that stuff. And it's like, this is a reality. This is very intentional on, I'm going to spend money just in preparation to, help you market your event and what. So, it's so all of, and one of the things that the juggling act has been, honestly, a lot of repurposing stuff. Cause like if I've had customers that are talking about shows for 22 and they say, we have an idea for this area that we want to do this, whatever. Right. I take drawings from previous events as ideas that kind of, in when they start talking, you kind of already start thinking about ideas that, you've done that would fit that mold, be it designs or layouts or whatever. So, I mean, I'm literally cropping out old photos and drawings and renders and saying, here's what we're going to work with. I don't bring on a designer to talk about concepts, anymore. I'd rather draw it on a bar napkin and take a picture of it until we're really sorting out what their needs are before I spend money on a draftsman or
because those were hard expenses. Those were always, I mean, for us, they're bottom line versus top line expenses, right? Drafting team, you got employees sitting around and they're working, so you throw them a job, here, draw this, and you don't think twice about it. But now it's a top line expense. You only have that expense accruing right now. When those jobs accrue, they go with it.
Right.
And I think it goes back to what I was saying about transparency with the customers. It's, people have got to understand, you've got to be communicating with your clients even through this downtime. And, I don't agree. I mean, I know out there, and I don't agree with some people's position of some people have shuttered their business, and we've had their clients calling us saying, I can't get a hold of anybody, but we know they're there. They want to come back at some point in time, but it's not putting a good taste in the mouth with these clients. I mean, being upfront with them, explaining to your clients, making sure they understand our industry. I mean, a lot of our clients weren't affected like we were affected. They're not all trade show producers. There's clients that are, corporate events that are, publicly traded companies that are working fine. Unless you have that transparency with them, you explain to them the situation. They don't know what to expect. But if you have that constant communication, it's easier for you to have that conversation with, hey, I got to bring a designer in, obviously, the situation we're in, and it's going to cost this as a deposit to be able to do this design for you. Or, we could sketch it up right here. We could do this, 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 and this, and this, using old materials, using old databases, stuff that we've designed in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just going through, like, what do you see some of the different types of pain points now with as we get back online?
I mean, number one is, I think we're frozen here.
Well, Nick, you can just keep talking, even though.
All right. I didn't know if it was him frozen or me.
It's just him. And it's such an awkward freeze too.
I know it is. Poor Rich. So I mean, really what we were saying, so I'll catch up with him after, but are just vendors themselves, vendors that we've worked with. Not all the vendors that we've worked with in the past are going to be there when we come out of this, right? There's vendors that just serviced our industry. There's suppliers that relied on it, but they've now pivoted to other industries and other markets. And we're a demanding industry. I mean, whether we like it or not, quick turn times, we need it on this day, it can't be late. There's a lot of demands. And, we beat up on price pretty good. I mean, that's kind of been the nature of what our industry is. And now these vendors have found other solutions. So now we're going to be going back to them and having conversations and making sure we can keep and push pricing. But another thing I think is a big concern right now is trucking and shipping. I mean, I know you've been seeing it, but with the jobs that we've had, we've been trucking a lot of equipment. And when you're talking, I mean, it's like a 75% increase in the cost to truck stuff cross country. I mean, that not necessarily us trucking and doing it, but clients coming in. So now, is that going to have a negative effect on these shows? So when these shows would have been 100% because of coronavirus, maybe they're going to be 60% of what they used to be. So now are people going to bring in smaller footprints, less items? Now you're looking at more of like a 50%, or 40% of what it was before.
Yeah, because not only are you seeing a reduction in the amount of exhibitors, but then the amount of spend is lower for them. Yeah,
and
they might be spending the same money, but we just see it as less because they reduced their weight, their shipping. Yeah,
and they're going to be the same. But I mean, we're and we've talked to multiple trucking companies. It's not like it's an outlier. You're picking a wrong vendor. We've tried multiple vendors, multiple companies, and it's amazing. All the prices are within a few $100s of each other, right? But instead of it being 4,000 or 4,500 or so across country, it's 7,000, 8,000, 20,000 round trip. And I'm worried that that's going to have a big negative effect because when our industry comes back online, there's a lot of logistics that happen with our industry, whether we see it on shows or not, continuous, nonstop moving of trucks, trailers, equipment, freight. So that part I think is going to be an interesting twist of what's happening.
Yeah, and the other thing is I'm also curious when we come back out, because like for us, let's say that half of our customers have been actively pursuing the new dates or new options and things throughout the past year and a half. It's like pushing back, changing venue, changing wherever locations, trying to get their events happening. And then the other ones are the ones that just are waiting it out. I'm also curious to see the ones that have been waiting it out. Are they, are we going to see the consolidation? Do they throw in the towel? Do they join forces with another show? So then now potentially you might have two customers that become one. So now you lost, your revenues down in that capacity as well. So,
and that was big push in our industry before now. I mean, that, before coronavirus was hitting, I mean, show consolidation was huge. It was happening consistently. You're seeing, GCs, merging. You were seeing a lot of buyouts happening. So obviously with money drying up, I don't know, how will that look? Because it's going to be a cost-effective thing for them now. It's going to be like your client moving to the convention center. Well, look how much money I'm saving by doing it versus doing it where I was at before. But it's things like that you're right. That's going to be interesting. Yeah,
because we're not the only ones looking at doing it smarter and more cost efficient moving forward. I mean, our customers are going to be looking at the same thing. So. And then one more pain point that we talk about often is not just our internal staff and preparation, but our on-site labor. What's that going to look like? I'm sure you, just like us, in Las Vegas, what's the manpower been? How many labor calls have you made over the past year So it's, when you put that labor call in, what's that going to look like? And what's the, so I guess a lot of that is going to come back to, early communication and how can we, fill a void if if there happens to be deficiency in manpower, throughout. So yeah, that's a concern, because I mean, it only makes sense that if work isn't there for a year, that labor force, the members are going to continue on to do something else to feed their families. So, it's, it's nothing to be, nothing to be bitter at. You have to expect that, but then we still have a job to do coming out of this. So now it's the communication with, like we've already been communicating with them, making sure that, like we have a show in 2 weeks, so we have to really talk about labor call and fulfillment. And we're fortunate that it's not a big enough show that was gonna take up the entire union hall, but it's manageable. But then
it's the guys you're used to receiving, the guys that continually work with your company like us. You got your guys that are always working with you. Now those guys aren't working in the industry anymore. You're missing leads, you're missing key gears in the system that you need to run and operate those areas. So it's an unknown. The labor calls out here have been fine, and we've gotten, with the few that we've done here, great response. All hands on deck, let's get through this. I mean, even with some of the hospital stuff like you were talking about that we worked on, same thing. It's like, hey, I'm gonna need guys. I mean, the union here even offered to donate some time, and donate guys to help set up stuff if it was end up being needed. So it was cool to see, but it's just, we don't know who's going to be left in that hall, like you're saying, at the time. So how much are they going to work with you? It's interesting. And then, I mean, the other side of this, and this is kind of off probably a little bit, but like locally, you're pre-negotiating your contracts. All these raises and things have been in place. So now we're going to come back to customers that haven't been operating and saying, hey, labor is going to be a little bit more. Hey, this is going to be a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big pain point too. And getting the clients to understand, these pre-negotiated contracts and things that are out there where, if we don't have the opportunity to renegotiate them and get them to a different level, that it's going to affect us as we're going through.
Yeah.
And you got employees that you're bringing back that, I don't know, like us, I mean, before we cut everybody off, we did pay cuts and hour cuts, and that's kind of how we winded down a little bit. And then as we moved forward and noticed that this wasn't going to end in August like we thought, that's when we started making really severe cuts to the people. But now do you bring them back at that pay cut level for the short term? Now these guys are working for you at a discounted rate. You're expected to do more things, but then you have your union and other contracts that are working at higher rates than they've heard before. So there's a lot of things that communication.
We got a lot of juggling.
A lot of juggling to do with that.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing though is, I know that being part, just to I guess being a proud member of ESCA, it's like having, throughout the years, the relationships and things that we've done. I know that all throughout this time, the members of ESCA, so many have been reaching out to me, and I've been reaching out to a lot, and like you and I, the same, like check in with each other, and everybo's been great about helping each other out, like what's going on in your area, what's going on in this and that. If you need anything, let me know. That communication has been constant, and we've the membership has been very uniting, even outside of our, like the group town halls that we've had in this and that. Like, I mean, just outside one-on-one, I've probably talked to 40 different people throughout the last few months, that just checking in, seeing how things are going. And again, everybody's been reassuring, hey, if you need anything, whenever you need anything, and I think that is going to be a big part of this, because, like we talk about the spend and getting back up and running, if I need X amount of this, piece of B matrix, or whatever, if I need X amount of, pipe and drape in a certain color or whatever, or if somebody needs, X amount, from me, I know that's, I think I definitely see everybody, helping each other out to get out of this, as painless as possible, because we all know that, nobody's got money to spend on anything. So, so yeah, I'm blessed to have the outreach and also, the friendships that we have here. And,
And
it's been
I
great.
couldn't agree more, because I think that's the sanity that gets you through that year and a half. These friends and relationships you built over the years with people in this industry that understand what you're going through. Because you can go talk to 20 other businesses, they have no clue what we dealt with. And you're
No,
right, the calls that
yeah,
I've gotten and the check-in and the status checks and the, hey, this is what I did with PPP, or this is what I did with funding. This is how I'm doing it.
yeah,
Just any kind of information we can do to help each other. That's really what allowed us to set ourselves up to get through this. The same as you with just the ESCA members. I mean, majority of them are all ESCA members, but they're the people we've always worked with.
yeah, definitely. So, all right, with that, I want to jump to some of the Q&A stuff. So, Lisa is asking, as business leaders, leading businesses and owners in the industry, what are you doing to support local businesses? Well, we are local businesses. What are you currently doing to include diversity and inclusion and minority and women-owned businesses? And so, well, minority and women-owned businesses have always been in our pipeline, and local businesses. So, one of the things that we do is, we and most of our partners are local to us or local to the areas that we're working in, on our end. And Nick, you got something to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, and I've had this conversation with a few of the vendors, but the local businesses that we've worked with in the past, I'm utilizing them again and continually utilizing them. I think even expanding what we've done locally to be to be more widespread, especially printing vendors, that kind of stuff that we could go to suppliers that are local and really kind of push on them. For us, we've always been pretty diversified with companies that we've worked with. We get pretty high rankings even within ADP with the system that we use for them. Is we're extremely diversified as a company, but also a lot of our vendors are. I mean, there's a lot of different businesses out there. I mean, and for me, it's just companies that are doing a good job for me, I'm always going to be loyal back to. And that's kind of what has always been the foundation behind us. It's that relationship and loyalty.
Yeah, definitely. Donna asks about restaurants seem to be getting the lion's share of congressional attention with COVID funding. Since our industry cannot do curbside or go-to conventions, we represent 22 billion industry. How do we get their attention for better funding ops? Well, I mean, the go live together, the group, and what is it called? The alliance now, I think with go live and
Richie, I unmuted Larry, so he's on, so he can talk to that for a second if you like.
Okay, Larry, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. There are a number of areas that we are approaching assistance with. One is the Go Live Together, which I'm sure you're all available or aware of. The other one is a recent alliance that was put together with that is working on it right now. And we do have a lobbyist that we recently hired, and he was on the call this morning if you had an opportunity to participate in that. And he is working very diligently on it right now with Congress. So, I don't have a specific answer for you. There are no answers yet, but it certainly is in the works, and we're doing everything we can to help.
Yeah. We just, as business owner, me and Rich had this conversation, I think a couple of days ago, just on a whim. We called and we're talking about it, but with programs that are out there like the PPP, the second round funding PPP, we were talking about the venue grant, service venue grant.
SVO, yeah.
Yeah, but the problem that it's a risk reward thing for us, because a lot of the legislation that's out there, because it's not directed towards our industry specifically, you don't know if there's going to be eligibility for it, and you could possibly not be eligible for it, but you might miss your PPP option for round 2 at the end of March before they even announce what's going to be the availability before it. Me and you were discussing to that, the venue operators grant.
Yeah, real quick, it's so for those that don't know, it's called the SVO grant, Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, and it has to do with, I mean, I think the origination was the theater district and the amphitheaters and centers that where everything was where the gatherings are, and it was as somebody, a tax attorney was talking to me about it. They were saying it's a very gray area for your involvement in it because, I guess it's all kind of down to how they would pick apart the eligibility. We all do things in venues where we're producers of events, we're the vendors that, build the actual events. So it was like you said, it's a gamble. Because one of the caveats of that in the eligibility was you cannot accept any PPP money after December 27th of
Right.
last
You
year.
can't even apply now, according to the
Right.
new ruling. So if you've even applied, you'd have to have your application declined before you can apply for the SVOG. So
Yeah,
it's kind of a real weird situation because if you were able to qualify for that, the amount of revenue that you would, or the amount of money you would get to rebuild your business would allow you to go to full operation day one. I mean,
Yeah.
it really would, because they're basing like 50%, or I think it's 40% of 2019 revenue. I mean, those are big numbers that
Right.
the majority of us would be able to go, okay, great, I could hire everybody back. We could start rolling.
Yeah,
We should be
100%.
fine. But with PPP being just a few weeks of revenue coming in the door, but at the same time, like we were talking about, we're not in a position to miss out on the PPP in hopes that we might be eligible for this program. Yeah, this
Right.
program will set us up for the future, but it's kind of a scary, and the way they've written these laws that you can't have one or apply for one and get the other is a little scary.
And like for us, we know we're eligible for PPP, so
Right.
we don't know we're eligible for a grant. We can't gamble on that. So we had to choose the latter. So, all right. And Michael asks, he just commented, transportation costs are only going to get higher. We're currently rating loads April 5% higher than today. So we're already seeing increased next month to this month. So, and there was some question about something about double invoicing facility. I don't know anything about that. And I agree that it does sound like a gateway to embezzlement. So
Yeah, really, it's not something I would think to do. So
yeah. So with that, I don't know if anyone else has any more questions to add to the Q&A.
Richie, there's two in the chat. One says, what advice do you have for your vendors for how they can best support you as we come to the end of this pandemic?
Oh, that's a good one. So, I mean, for me, I would say, obviously with our employee, wow, Alexa decided to answer. So just so you know, you don't have to say it. So, with the vendors, us under employment constraints, not having enough employees, not gonna, how to hire them back, how to bring them on board. What can your vendors do with staffing they have to help assist you accomplish those goals? Like graphic vendors with layouts and pre-press. It's one less job that we're trying to fill on our side. Certain, maybe instead of us having a CAD layout to do full carpet plans, maybe carpet companies assisting on looking at the plans and helping us lay out the carpet stuff. Just utilizing ways that vendors can help assist us to meet the needs that we have at the time, so we can balance our hiring back to make sure that we're still, going to be a sustainable company as we move forward.
And to add to that, I mean, ESCA members, and a lot of the vendors that we work with are ESCA members, and I got to tell you though, the flexibility in payments and things like that has been huge also, because as everybody got caught with their pants down in this, and we all of our vendors that we were in the midst of racking up big bills have had real flexibility with us paying back at a slow pace, without penalizing. And I mean, most of these are because of the long-term relationships. And again, with this community here. So, with some of the things that, they've been able to be flexible on the time, that's been huge too. So
I didn't even say that, but you're right. That's been bigger than anything. I mean, a lot of our vendors, them understanding who our clients were, and, with, not the majority of them, but the majority of our clients are, our other venue or other trade shows and events that are happening. So they're getting shuttered like we are. Some of the bigger corporations, the publicly traded, they're moving on and still paying and doing their stuff.
Yeah.
So the vendors understanding what our revenue stream is and our payables versus receivables. And we're
Yes.
trying, we're trying to make good, we're trying to make payments,
Yeah.
all of us out there, we all have money we owe to people and people owe us money. And,
Yeah.
our biggest thing as a company, it's like, how do I keep my AP and my AR a one-to-one level? So when a dollar comes in this AR, I could put this
Yeah.
dollar on AP. And unfortunately, it's been a struggle. And I hate to have to put that out onto vendors, but there's no other means of revenue coming in the door. And if we could keep open and make it through this tough time, we know that we're going to generate the revenue to make sure those are all made good.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
we also know that our customers are going to have their next event and they're going to catch up with the sales of their booths and their spaces. So
yeah,
it's them understanding it and really grasping that concept. And unfortunately, vendors that have done that are going to, out of loyalty, that's who we're going to be more loyal to. I mean, that's a priority.
yeah, definitely. Julie, was there another one?
Yeah, Tara Erickson from B Matrix stated that they received full forgiveness for their first PPP loan and wants to know if any others in the industry are having the same response.
We have on ours. So we
Yeah.
did our first round PPP was forgiven. The process was actually much easier than I expected it to be.
Yeah, same.
The paperwork, the requirements, and really, I think the company's doing the right thing when you're receiving the funds and you can just document it relatively easy.
Yeah.
I found it as a simple process. I mean, there was, nothing was surprising or shocking. I think reading the rules and reading the regulations, and then if you flip over and read what the requirements are for getting forgiveness, it puts a little bit of fear into people like, oh, wow, they're going to look at this and this step with this. It's not that I'm trying to do something shady here, but it doesn't necessarily fall in this order for me. They seem to, it was actually, the forgiveness was widened larger, I think, than I initially expected it to be. They allowed you to move a payroll week. So you're able to get one payroll week ahead of what you thought you were with the forgiveness. So again, we didn't have any issue. We did get, I'll throw this out there in case anybody hasn't ran into this yet, but with the EDIL, the disaster relief, they were giving out $10,000 grants. So all you had to do was apply and you got a free $10,000 grant. Even if you didn't take the loan, you got the $10,000. We applied for the EDIL. A lot of people did, but by the time we applied, they had lowered the requirement down from whatever the limit was, like 300,000 to like 30 grand or 25,000. Well, at that point for me to take 25,000, it was like, it's not, for us, it wasn't going to cover rent or payroll. It wouldn't have done enough to make sense to take a loan out, but we got that $10,000 grant that just gets deposited.
Right.
So originally it was told that we had to pay that grant back when we got our PPP forgiveness. When our forgiveness came in, it was short 10,000. We owed the 10,000. Now, as time went on with the new legislation, they waived the payback requirement. So just randomly, I think about a week ago, we got a letter from Chase and it said, we received $10,312 from the SBA to cover the $10,000 grant that we were going to put on loan for you. This $300 check included is the interest you paid on the payments you've made. So they're doing that automated and automatically. So, but those are little things that we've run into and noticed. And, I've tried to keep our ear to the floor to make sure we're moving.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I asked somebody about the EIDL recently, and someone mentioned that had already stopped. Do you know if they've?
I don't think they do the 10,000 grant anymore, but I know they're.
So if you did it early on,
yeah,
you can get forgiveness. Okay.
You got now with them, they're not. From my understanding, they have increased the loan amounts now from that 30,000 they went down to. So I think they're up to like 150 or 200,000. In the beginning of the pandemic, people were getting, I know a couple of people in our industry got like $750,000 loans. They didn't plan on using, but they wanted to have the funds there. But then once that depleted, they lowered it down to I think 30 grand, but I think it's back up to a 150 or 250. You go to SBA.gov and it gives you pretty specific info.
Yeah.
And if people have questions out there, I'm happy to put my time out there, but my information's available on the chat and I can put it in there, but feel free to call me if you have questions on, forgiveness or any of that EDIL with the grant forgiveness, because we've been through it and I'm happy to share what, it's not like we're doing 50 events right now. We have plenty of time to share. So
hey guys, I invited Taylor Vereen's to join us up on stage here. Hi, Taylor. Taylor had some similar experiences to the two of you and also a couple comments about the cash flow. Taylor?
I was just gonna, I've got a little feedback going on, sorry.
You're fine.
Um,
Doesn't sound as bad here as you think it probably does.
Okay, it's on my end, I guess. I was just gonna say, your banking relationship on, as far as PPP goes, is super important. Our banks have pretty much handled the whole forgiveness process for us, and our experience on the EIDL was the same as yours, Nick. It just was automatic. If you haven't gotten PPP forgiveness of round one now, you really should be approaching your bank and getting that figured out, because it's pretty easy to do.
I mean, I can't agree more. I mean, it's not worth, spending the money on the interest, because now if you haven't done it for round one, that interest is on you, and it's not a hard process. I mean, the banks have done
Yeah,
it.
and like you said, I mean, it was very easy to look at what their requirements were and say, yeah, all those boxes get checked. I will spend all of this money on payroll and overhead. So it was like, yeah, this is a no brainer, and and I didn't get a Lamborghini. So
Right. See that me neither, unfortunately. I will notice, I'll say this out there. If you haven't done forgiveness, it's when you do the forgiveness, you log into that same automated site. As you answer questions, I mean, as you upload documents and it asks you questions and you answer them, it whittles it down. And being in our industry, because we were, this is something that's a fear out there for people, and we might not know this, but because our industry was regulated to be closed, there is a box, and when we did on the Chase one, we did the forgiveness, that asked if our industry was, not allowed to operate due to government requirements, which is obviously we qualify for, and that waived the FTE requirement for the forgiveness, meaning you didn't have to hire back the employees, you didn't have to be at that employee level, as long as your business wasn't allowed to operate. And that obviously, once you did that, that's, I think, where a lot of that fear in there is, because there was a lot of things. I got to bring everybody back. I got to pay everybody the same. There can't, there was a lot of miscommunication or confusion in that, but it was an evolving document, unfortunately. So you couldn't read it once and think you knew it. They were changing it on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. So with new regulations, he just kept changing on us.
All right. I don't see any other questions other than Dale Hunt had a comment, just that to make sure that everybody knew the second draw on PPP requires a fully used first round.
It does require fully used. I believe it said fully used, or I think there was something in there, and you'd have to read it more in depth, but it said something about intent to use it, or you can show that you're going to use it all within the required, within the requirement. So depending on when people got it. So if you had gotten it late in the year and you still have eligibility on your 26 weeks, you just have to show intent that you're going to be using it in addition.
Yeah, and then Michael Payne had a comment about leaving a larger bank to go to a smaller one, because he found it helpful. I will resoundingly say I've heard people say that, and that's been actually ESCA's experience, is that we've gotten more support from smaller banks.
We did. I'll throw a shout out to First Bank of the Lake in Missouri, because they did a bunch for us, and we're an awesome company to work with. So we did the same thing. We've always been really loyal to Chase, but it seems like, this is something I'd love to tell people about if we have a little bit more time, but it seems like with the bigger banks, they were the hardest ones pushing on us. I don't know if everybody felt the same, but as soon as our industry kind of shuttered down, all of a sudden I'm getting letters from credit card companies and from banks about, we want to do a review your financials. We want to look at, where you guys are at with this, or your credit limits on that. So all of a sudden, the banks are now putting pressure on you because they know your industry shuttered, right?
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me that loyalty all kind of went out the door. Yeah, I'm loyal to you, but you're not really as loyal to me. And that was something that, it went a long way. We found a partner in a bank at First Bank of the Lake, and they were able to assist us with our PPPs, but other financing things that we needed to do. And they built a lifelong relationship with us because they were there for us when we needed them. We did round one with Chase, and then we switched to them for round two, and it was great.
There is one more question there from David. I'm going to say your name wrong, David. Mihalik. You got it? All right, go ahead. I'll let you correct it.
I know, David. Hey, David. So it says PP forgiveness, our bank is asking for proof of payment is the form of canceled checks, or if the vendor provided statements. This can be time consuming because of the volume of overhead invoices, that we don't get canceled checks back any longer. How did you guys handle that? It was really, we ended up doing bank statements. We were trying to keep it. So what we did in the beginning with my accounting person is we used Box. and we set up folders on Box for PPP forgiveness. And then we were going through and anytime we cut a check, she took a photocopy of the check, took a photocopy of the invoice, dropped it in the boxes, payment 1 from PPP, payment 2. That's kind of how we did it. It turned out a lot of the landlords, a lot of the companies that don't do invoices, it was just bank statements and highlighting where that money debited our account. I mean, I don't know. And that's the part I think it went so smooth based on the amount of information I provided and the time it took to get the forgiveness. I don't know how detailed it was dug through. I think it was more of them looking at it, making sure that things added up and made sense, you know, and I think that's kind of more of it was more of a brief overview versus an in-depth, you know, going right at it and, you know, trying to add everything up and figure everything out.
Your next one here is Andy Freeman's got some questions about how you dealt with warehousing and landlords. Andy, my advice is to move to Canada because they have this excellent forgiveness on rent right now. I think it's 90%. So just everybody go to Canada when they let us back in. But no, he wants to know any advice on dealing with landlords. They haven't worked with them at all on reducing rents.
Well, first, I'm not going to Canada because I don't know what to do in the snow. No, I mean, we've been very blessed and fortunate to have a good relationship with our landlord. We rent here, so they've been, we've been paying, but not full rent. We've been paying to cover, you know, insurance and you know, taxes on their end. And I mean, not that that's going to go away. We're going to owe that, but they've been, you know, at least letting us pay a reduced rate, you know, just to alleviate some stress right now. Because knowing the industry, you know, we've been in this building a long time. We have a great rapport. So I think a lot of it has to do with the relationship you have with the owner, the building owner. And I see the question is, who's your landlord? It's a private owner. It's a privately owned building. It's not a corporation. So,
see, we had our, you know, we're in kind of a split situation as we own the buildings that I'm currently in. So we have a footprint that we own, but then we also have a landlord, obviously in Nashville, but we also have additional warehouses in Vegas that we have landlords on. And it was like you, it's just, and these are, I mean, it wasn't global landlord companies. They own multiple properties in Vegas, but it was just that communication, you know, from day one on the phone with them, you see what's going on, you see what's happening, and then working with them on options to keep us as current as possible, right? What can we do to make a payment, or what can we make, you know, and they worked with us on giving us discounted rents. What we did is we actually leveraged like our full rent for when we had the PPP funds. I told them, listen, I can give you 50% rent. We got the PPP funds. I'll pay you the full rent each month, but you give me 2 months of, you know, you give me an additional month for each month that I pay. So then I'm able to take that 26-week PPP loan and stretch it over, you know, basically 52 weeks. Yeah. Because I'm paying, you know, every month like I'm supposed to. So I'm paying for 6 months and he's giving me 6. Obviously, and then the back rents that are due on that, really the idea behind it is renegotiating the lease, you know, re-upping the lease, doing something, and then try to get back into that same plan of utilizing, again, this PPP to try to help dig out as far as possible from what, you know, anything that we have.
Yeah, the accrued debt, that you're going to have.
The asset ones with the mortgage side of it, I mean, owning the business, I just want to throw that out there, the ones that do own their buildings. I found it extremely easy. It was a quick phone call. Hey, Chase, we're in a bad forbearance. And they literally it was a forbearance, but it wasn't anything that was like credit reported or anything weird. Right. They just literally did 90-day payment stops, but the interest still accrued. And they did it for 90 days. And then I think about 3 months or 4 months later, they did it. They sent me another letter saying, if you want another 3 months, we're willing to give it to you based on your relationship. So we ended up getting 6 months without having to do any of our mortgage payments. Thankfully, you know, and it helps a lot. You know, they did that with mortgage. They did that with the credit lines. You know, so that was actually really interesting. And they were very easygoing about it. Yeah. Not any issues and stuff in that aspect. So, you know, it's just communication. It's transparency and communication.
Yeah. And I think that, again, that goes a long way because, you know, if you take a hard nose, I can't pay rent and you can't kick me out, that's just going to sour the relationship moving forward. So I think that, the early on communication and, you know, really just working with them the best you can, you know, is, I think that the landlords respond well to that. So.
Yeah.
All right, it looks like we wrapped up all of our questions. I did need to do one little bit of housekeeping about the fact that as a woman in industry during Women's History Month, for some reason, this is my third panel that I put together of all white men. So go me during Women's History Month. No, but I wanted to kind of circle back to Lisa's comment earlier about diversity and inclusion and things like that, and give a shout out to all of those, not just women or anything like that, anybody that has come up from an underrepresented area, and give a huge shout out. We are all stronger together when our leadership represents us. So I think it's a good time to say that. And
I will say, Julie, too, I mean, you know, other than the fact that my sister is a little camera shy, she is an owner of my business with me. So we are a women-owned business as well. So me and her operate and manage the business together. So
Shout out to Lisa and Global Security. She's one of our vendors.
I love it. That's great. Thank you for, I'm glad she brought that up. I was really thinking, what, I didn't even pay attention this month to that. So anyway, and then any of you out there who are not an ESCA member, I did put our contact info in there. You have no idea how much we truly are stronger together. I answered one of the live questions about the EIC, which is the follow-up to Go Live Together initiative. ESCA was the largest contributor to Go Live Together. We are a significant contributor to EIC as well, which is the permanent transition of Go Live Together. So we've employed a lobbyist. We are working to get those funds to make sure our voices are heard. They have some asks. So it officially launched yesterday. And they have some asks. They want everybody to talk to your local representation, but they also want to know what you're saying, who you're talking to, what communications are happening. And so look for, over the next week or two, a more solidified approach to communicating the answers to some of those lobbyist questions, some of how we can all communicate. There'll be standardized information coming out once again, just like there was last year. Send this letter to your representatives in DC, et cetera. So,
Julie,
yeah.
I'm going to ask, I mean, I don't know this answer, so I don't put you on the spot, but is this something that we're going to be, something that's going to be a consistent continuation within the industry? Because I feel like personally, that drop off, or the reason we didn't get the attention, is because we didn't put our attention at that prior to this all happening. Right. So after this is over with, having that as a continued committee or a continued group that is continually fighting for our benefits and our well-being as an industry. So if anything ever happens again, we already have set that precedence of the representation. We're not a small industry. We're a giant industry. We just haven't really put our energy that way. And I think it ties into, you know, being so busy and so much going on. But I think having something that's consistently happening, even after this pandemic is over, to help prep us for anything in the future that might happen.
That's the point, actually. That is the exact reason why they're doing this, realizing that, you know, it's not that we've been reactive. We have exhibitions mean business, and there's been several iterations going forward. Go Live Together was created in response to the pandemic. This EIC Council is in response to the future. We know we're a catalyst industry. We bring so much revenue and stimulus to local economies. We are a catalyst industry and we need to be better represented. There was the comment earlier about, you know, restaurants could have curbside. What could we do? So we need that. This is the permanent, and it's not just to get us through COVID. It's right. To get us through whatever comes here forward. It is a permanent solution, full-time staff, a permanent drive forward. So you'll start seeing us put out a lot of information about it as it moves forward, as the transition happens to that.
And that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And you know, our industry is so far reached that a lot of people have contacts that I think we can all share and really kind of get that ball rolling. So in the future, we're in a better position.
And that's what it needs to be. All of our voices need to be heard extremely loud. There is money out there to be had, and our industry is being ignored. So yeah. We need to get through this and then have a better path forward.
Definitely.
One other question popped up, but it wants to know any companies we know in Las Vegas that had closed for good. You know, there's not any that have stood out to me on ones that are closing and gone as of yet. So I don't have an answer on a list of companies that have closed for good. We're all going to see change. I mean, I think once we start opening back up, that's when you're really going to know what vendors, what companies, what exhibition houses. There's a million rumors out there. I mean, you've all heard them and about a million different companies, but the reality is as Rich said earlier, you can grab the phone and call any one of the owners of these companies. Most of us have all worked together, and they're always happy to talk about, where they're at, what their situation is, where they're going to be. I mean, again, we don't have, a million events going on, so everybody's kind of more open to communicating, and that's going to be key to bringing this industry back.
Well,
Right.
thank you both so much for
Yes.
doing this. This has been fantastic.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for having us. And yeah, it's been good because we have conversations like this every once in a while, and so it's good to have it in a forum like this and get the feedback and questions. So yeah, thank you, and thank you to the membership for all the support, and looking forward to seeing everybody again.
Very soon.
Thank you all. Have a great week.
Take care. Thank you.